The Warcraft logs for Season of Discovery are heating up today, so let's jump right into it. The #1 spot continues to be dominated by the exceptional player, Cuties. This Arcane Mage from Living Flame EU server has now held the top spot an impressive 13 times. Cutie's strategic gameplay and mastery of his character continue to set the standard in the WoW Classic community. Hot on Cutie's heels, we have a trio of players who have each held the top spot 12 times. Nightsong, the Shaman tank player, has shown remarkable tenacity. Similarly, Enigmezex, a Warlock tank player, has proven to be a formidable contender. Not to be overlooked, Tree Ranger, the Hunter melee player, has also held the top spot 12 times, showcasing his superior skills and strategy. In the balanced Druid category, Innate from Crusader Strike US in the guild Humbertism dominates the leaderboard with a DPS of 1051.2, maintaining this position for over a week. Following closely, Hotmiss from Living Flame EU in the guild 99 holds the second spot with a DPS of 1029.8. The third spot is claimed by Blazarus from Crusader Strike US in the guild Parse, boasting a DPS of 1026.5. The remaining top 10 players for today, in order of their placement, are Centripetal, Adriu, Shay, Rooftrelance, Loria, Gordonfreen, and Bobalu. In the Feral Druid category, Parse Police from Living Flame EU, Guild Silver Saga continues to dominate with a steady DPS of 1466.8, holding the top spot for the 5th consecutive day. Close on their heels is BGTD from Living Flame EU Guild B Tribe, with a DPS of 1453.6 in Lawsuit. Also from Living Flame EU, Guild Silver Saga continues, with a DPS of 1436.2. These top 3 players have shown remarkable consistency in their performance. The remaining top 10 for today are Giny, Africantiger, Cyril, Swagdonald, Caddy Peas, Lil Claws, and Kates. In the Guardian Druid category, NMX from Lone Wolf US in the guild Chinese Textile Machine continues to reign supreme, holding the top spot for over a week, with a consistent DPS of 848.2. Killja Rapuli from Living Flame EU in the guild Sipan Kalasura holds the second spot with a DPS of 831.1. Today, we see a shift in the third spot as Cadet 8 from Living Flame EU in the guild B Tribe moves up with a DPS of 823.2, replacing MyNuts S from the guild HUSH. The remaining top 10 are Ankler, MyNuts Yuan Fun, PumpX, Sudo Aptigit, Giny, and Optimalgal. In the Melee Hunter category, Tree Ranger from Living Flame US, representing the guild Cartel, continues to hold the top spot with a DPS of 1556.9. a position he's impressively maintained for over a week. Hot on his heels is Olgi from Living Flame EU of the guild Den Dansky Method, boasting a DPS of 1514.9. Rounding out the top 3 is Johnny Sins from Lone Wolf EU in the guild Oxygen, with a DPS of 1507.9. The competition remains fierce with the rest of the top 10, including Rezorth, Yangla Chi Chi, Zatara, Cornshot, Min Yaros, Waffle Freeze, and Tenokyu, all vying for the coveted top 3 positions. In the Ranged Hunter category, Tubalumpkin from Living Flame US in the guild Smooth holds the top spot for the second day running with a DPS of 1349.7, a remarkable achievement. Following closely is Fragmaster from Living Flame EU in the guild B Tribe, who has climbed to the second spot with a DPS of 1338.6. Bumrush from Crusader Strike US maintains a strong presence in the top 3, delivering a DPS of 1336.0. The remaining top 10 for today are QIACIDU Lang TW Floorberry's Lone Wolfus, Dizio Living Flame EU, Locky Living Flame EU, Potato Pilot Lone Wolfus, Dark Crusader Strike Us, and Skinny Crusader Strike Us. In the Arcane Mage category, Digidudu from Wild Growth EU in the guild Resist has held the top spot for 2 consecutive days with a DPS of 677.4. showcasing an impressive performance. Following closely is Cuties from Living Flame EU with a DPS of 631.4, maintaining their position at second place. Rounding out the top 3 is Muju from Gulang TW in the guild Duye Plus with a DPS of 613.9. The remaining top 10 for today are Insimage, and Mwaxo, Dazidi Greats, Kusin, Kobito, and Jessa, all demonstrating exceptional prowess in the Arcane Mage category. In the Fire Mage category, Delano from Crusader Strike US continues to hold the top spot for the second day running, with a DPS of 1,195.3, a testament to his consistent performance. Following closely is Kia Jujiayi from Yexingquan UTW in the guild Yuan Qian, maintaining a DPS of 1,177.8. The third spot is claimed by Mellowish from Wild Growth US, with a DPS of 1,158.8. The remaining top 10 players for today are Tumu Charmer, Duchanim Magisula, PM Sest Maltazar, and G Lizi, each showcasing impressive stats and contributing to the competitive spirit of the game. In the Frost Mage category, Watch Tome from Lone Wolf EU continues to dominate with a DPS of 1,039.4, holding the top spot consistently since April 25, 2024. Obi from Living Flame EU has risen to the second position today, representing the guild link logs with a DPS of 991.9. TDMZ from Crusader Strike US maintains a solid performance in the third spot, representing the guild Parse with a DPS of 987.4. The remaining top 10 for today are Triopio, Kiwakiwaki, Satika, Snows, Fake Casting, Panaris, and Kong. In the Protection Paladin category, the top spot is firmly held by Hier Mei from Shengming Lian TW in the guild Chuanchang, maintaining a DPS of 1,237.7 for over a week now. Following closely are One Punch from Living Flame US in the guild Cartel with a DPS of 1,229.3, and Fakyaz from Lone Wolf US in the guild Lethal with a DPS of 1,221.3. The remaining top 10 players, in order of placement, are Farvold, Boysathik Fought, and Ming Duz Gonfin Rubisco. These players continue to demonstrate exceptional skill and strategy in their gameplay, contributing to a highly competitive leaderboard. In the Retribution Paladin category, Pettery from Wild Growth EU in the guild Dragonslayers continues to hold the top spot for the 5th consecutive day with a DPS of 1,372.8. Tyrion Polduring from Godoan Nog DKR in the guild Il Renijib holds steady at second place with a DPS of 1,336.7, and Ikanos from Crusader Strike US in the guild Discovery Monkeys remains in third with a DPS of 1,331.9. The remaining top 10 for today are Elv Chapo, Henxiao De Dajuhua, Jinix, Gao Da, Kui Yu, Muse, and Chobo. In the Shadow Priest category, Waga from Living Flame EU in the guild link logs has ascended to the top spot today with a DPS of 948.9, surpassing Flayed from Shadowstrike AU. .u.s in the guild Male Models who held the position for the past 3 days with a DPS of 940.6. The third spot is claimed by Theradrin from Wild Growth US in the guild Arathi Logging Colorado with a DPS of 915.8. The remaining top 10 for today are Valinor, Case Max, Eoxy, Skusho, Bonk Marshall, Aplexa Priest, and Tisania. Notably, Flade's consistent performance and Waga's recent surge highlight the intense competition in the Shadow Priest rankings. In the DPS Rogue category, Body Snatcher from Shadowstrike AU. .u.s in the guild Fatality has held the top spot for 2 consecutive days with a DPS of 1,507.1, demonstrating remarkable consistency. In second place, we have Zhu Shui Dai from Shengming Lian TW in the guild Chuanchang, delivering a DPS of 1,498.6. Rounding out the top 3 is Karina from Godon Nogdai KR in the guild Rundakio, with a DPS of 1,493.1. The remaining top 10 players for today are Tiriela 4, Shrai 5, Reminder 6, Naranghai 7, Iwanal 8, Dondakiman 9, and Onev 10. In the Tank Rogue category, Nerf Assassin from Gulang TW in the guild Nerf Shadow Club continues to dominate, holding the top spot for over a week with a consistent DPS of 1,096.4. Coming in second is Sion from Wild Growth US in the guild Pushing Up Peacebloom, boasting a DPS of 977.1. Not far behind in third place is Sketcher from Crusader Strike US in the guild We The Ops, with a DPS of 972.2. The remaining top 10 for today are Twisted Step, DNP, Hakwin, Lit, Bob Rogue, Jengjai Jengki, and Riavi. In the Elemental Shaman category, Hexmother from Lone Wolf US, Guild Hunks, has surged to the top with a DPS of 1,165.9, a significant increase from yesterday's 970.3. Philly from Crusader Strike US, Guild Humbertism, follows closely with a DPS of 1,093.2, while Liha Piraka from Living Flame EU, Guild Valquaset Mitsu, holds the third position with ABS of 1084.8. Notably, Hexmether has held a top 3 position for the past week, showcasing consistent performance. The remaining top 10 are Lava Blurst, Elementalman, Nature Shock, Shamandani, Zorlak, Sultian, and Nershaman. In the Enhancement Shaman category, Iopesham from Lone Wolf US in the guild Strictly Business continues to hold the top spot with a DPS of 1550.6, a position they've maintained for over a week. Coming in second is Zobe from Living Flame EU in the guild link logs with a DPS of 1514.6. Today we see a new face in the top 3, BDD from Living Flame EU in the guild B Tribe, boasting a DPS of 1508.6. The remaining top 10 for today are NA, Kryptonhance, Jod Hansemt, Fakeban, Bozater, Disgamizas, and Barsney. In the Tank Shaman category, Nightsong from Living Flame EU in the guild Summers continues to hold the top spot for the 7th consecutive day with a DPS of 1147.5. Iwo from Living Flame EU in the guild Trash has moved up to second place with a DPS of 1123.4. showing a significant improvement from yesterday's DPS of 840.6. Vistalo from Wild Growth EU in the Guild Conspiracy maintains a strong presence in the top 3 with a DPS of 1013.1. The remaining top 10 for today are Walks, Gearshaman, Salfir, Repo, Taz, Majestic, and Salt. In the DPS Warlock category, Taco from Shadowstrike AU, .U.S, in the guild Angles continues to dominate with a DPS of 1203.6, maintaining his 1 position for over a week. Wayne Warlock from Shengming La Yan TW in the guild Chung Nuo rises to the 2nd spot with a DPS of 1169.4, pushing yesterday's 2nd place holder, Zhanggu Dong, to the 6th spot. Pantslock from Lone Wolf US in the guild Hunks secures the 3rd spot with a DPS of 1160.6. The remaining top 10 for today are Strawberry Living Flame EU, Firmatic Living Flame EU, Zhanggu Dong Shengming La Yan TW, Pants Lone Wolfus, Dogslayer Living Flame EU, Crowley Living Flame EU, and Raimia Crusader Strike EU. In the Tank Warlock category, Iningzexkex from Living Flame EU in the guild Pepident continues to reign supreme with a DPS of 1045.0, holding this top position for over a week now. Close on his heels is Lobster from Living Flame US in the guild Mud Hut Elite with a DPS of 1040.2, and Gigapro Max from Lone Wolf EU in the guild Dodskulton rounds out the top 3 with a DPS of 999.2. The remaining top 10 for today are Barot from Lone Wolfus, TikToxic from Crusader Strike Us, Kyrek Meta from Crusader Strike Us, John Randomdo from Godoan No DKR, Havoc from Shengming La Yan TW, H&D from Living Flame EU, and Dinosaur from Wild Growth Us. In the Fury Warrior category, Sapato from Lone Wolf EU in the guild Ego continues to dominate with a DPS of 1801.5, holding the top spot for 3 consecutive days. Mog Bio from Godoan No DKR in the guild Il Renajib follows closely in 2nd place with a DPS of 1658.9, while Jia Qig Ish from Gulang TW secures the 3rd place with a DPS of 1626.1. The remaining top 10 for today are ZSPDU Subtamiyov, Chaya, Londo, Tarks, Twerky, and QI and QZ Zaini. In the Protection Warrior category, Bu On from Godogan Nogde KR in the guild Il Renajib holds the top spot for the 3rd consecutive day with a DPS of 1418.9, showcasing his consistency. In 2nd place, we have Threat from Crusader Strike US in the guild Gnome, maintaining a DPS of 1387.9. Rounding out the top 3 is Agony from Shengming La Yan TW, matching Threat's DPS at 1387.2. The remaining top 10 warriors for today are Kabir, Duo Luo Esizu, Inzaki, Matrix, Rui Wenju Rekt, and Lyraya.